Hello everybody. So this video is entitled MetaPlanet. Doubling the bag. Are they about to double the bag again? I haven't covered MetaPlanet in quite a while. In fact, my last video on MetaPlanet was on June 3rd, 2025. And I was pretty bullish about the business. MetaPlanet is one of my smaller positions, but still quite substantial. And of course, you know, like many of you, I haven't been happy about the stock price movement. But I don't care about the short term. This is a stock that I still want to have in, maybe 5 to 10 years. This is a stock that I want to see behave once Bitcoin gets past $1 million. That's why I own these companies. They're long-term holds. And believe me, it's the only way I would accept paying a $50 transaction fee to buy a stock OTC on an old world broker. Anyway, June 3rd, I made this video. They had 8,888 Bitcoin. Bitcoin abundance. It was amazing. And I asked, is 100% quarter over quarter sustainable? Like, can they continue? And guess what? They did more than continue because it's been 2 months and 3 weeks. August 24 from this video is 2 months and 3 weeks later. 2 months and 3 weeks later, they have 18,991 Bitcoins. So the Bitcoin increased 114% in under 3 months since I last covered MetaPlanet to today when I cover MetaPlanet again. So they've doubled the Bitcoin bag. And are they going to double it again? That's going to be the conclusion of this video and the question mark of this video with now their international share offering and them offering shares in the United States. We'll talk about that in a second. And of course, you wouldn't know this business is doing so well if you just looked at the stock price. If you just looked at the stock price, you can tell, yeah, it's trading at $6. Frankly, it's not that catastrophic compared to when I covered it in this video. It dropped 37%. That's nothing in the Bitcoin world. That's nothing in the Treasury world. That's even nothing in the growth stock world. It's a lot of the stocks I cover on the channel. These movements don't scare us at all, right? At least on this channel. So frankly, it's nothing at all. If you DCA, yeah, sure, you probably have some tranches where you may have bought at 13 or 15, and then it sucks. But if you DCA, you also probably got in at 2 and at 4, right? And I have a tranche of this stock that I got at $4. So I'm down on the position, like roughly 40% down, 20%, sorry, not 40, roughly 20% down on this position. I don't care at all. Fully sleep well at night. But what's important is to realize that the reason why this stock is down is not because of the underlying business performance. It's not because of their ability to buy Bitcoin. They've been doing really, really well on that. It's because of that MNAV compression. And, there's like coordinated attacks. And, when you see Bitcoin today, I don't know if you went on X and saw Bitcoin today, there's clearly coordinated attacks with a bunch of crypto influencers saying they all sold Bitcoin and it's all written in the exact same way. And I've seen those like all day. I'm pretty sure they were coordinated attacks on these companies with MNAV, and a lot of people complaining about MNAV, not understanding the dilution. There is these things going on in crypto, and these companies have been hurt by the MNAV, by the issue of this one. MNAV is down 60%. The stock is down 37%, but the underlying business performance is up 114%. And so MNAV of 2 makes it much more compelling to buy right now, in my view, because, the downside technically is about 50% from here in the worst case scenario, because I do believe that we live in an era where these companies are not really going to trade below 1. But it's like this company has been destroyed by MNAV. That's it. And MNAV has been rebounding for strategy, and I think MNAV will rebound as we get into the second half of a bull market with September, with September and November and the end of the year. I'm very bullish about Bitcoin for the end of the year. So that's a company, of course, that I want to study right now while it's cheap, while it's in the valley of despair. The level of ridiculousness, again, of the stock price, given the MetaPlanet business performance, to me is nonsensical. Yield year to date, 465%. So they have more than 5x the Bitcoin in the time being, right? In 8 months, 9 months, we've more than 5x the Bitcoin. You can see the yield to date. The BTC gain has been outstanding every quarter. They've been able to rise their Bitcoin, nearly exponentially. Granted, a little less lately because of the MNAV, but they are still growing it. And remember that the preferreds are not there yet. I'll get to the preferreds in a second, but they haven't launched the preferreds yet. The annual meeting is on September 1st. But anyways, they've been even doing well on the Bitcoin income generation. So you may know they keep a little bit of cash, like they keep a stash of cash on their balance sheet, and they write cash secured puts on Bitcoin because they're going to buy the Bitcoin anyways, and they generate revenues for that Bitcoin. And the reason why they do that, the reason why they want to show revenues, Gerovich explained that a few times, is because there's a lot of Japanese funds who can't buy these assets unless they show positive revenues, growing revenues. So you need to show like consistently growing revenue, at least in Japan. And you have a lot of traditional investors in Japan who want to see revenues. And so even though they don't need to do that, they do it because they want to show growing revenues, even though, of course, if you were to value this company on revenue, it would be a nosebleed valuation. But I understand why they do that. A lot of companies are doing that. For example, Mara is doing something similar with their Bitcoin stash. With options, and there will be different ways to actually earn revenues with a Bitcoin stash. I believe that's going to be the big 2030 thesis, is how you're going to be able to earn a yield on your Bitcoin stash, because make no mistake, as blockchain is going to be more secure, there will be ways to earn yield on Bitcoin, kind of like staking, but it will be things like, you do a pair, like you list a pair between Bitcoin and USDT or USDC, and you earn a yield on that pair as it already exists in DeFi. But we're not there yet, and I understand that. Bitcoin targets, again, this company, what's not to love? Like, they gave us BTC targets until 2027, so you have yet 2 years worth of guidance, and that guidance is really, really helpful to see where the company is seeing itself stand. And they have an ordinary bond on the balance sheet, an older one. This one doesn't really matter, but you can see the BTC rating on that bond is 33%. So they have 33 times more Bitcoin than that bond, than that debt. And you can clearly see the Bitcoin value on the balance sheet is a little bit above $2 billion, and the enterprise value of the company is $4.4 billion. So it gets you an MNAV of about 2.2 roughly. This has dropped so much. And let's do an update on some of the bullish pieces of news that have been going on for MetaPlanet. So, of course, the moving strike warrants, their version of the ATM, that's how they've grown the Bitcoin stack so much, right? Between 888 and 19,000 Bitcoin, they've grown that stash because they have exploited the moving strike warrant. They've exploited the ATM, and so they did very well to do that. And the company, the business itself, is a much more solid business now with so much Bitcoin. So they sold $1 for $5, and then $1 for $4, and then $1 for $3, and now they're selling $1 for $2. Although they are stopping that because of the international share issuance that I'll get to in a second. But just like strategy, they have a plan for two preferreds. They are issuing 2 preferreds coming up in September. These preferreds are not out yet, but they're kind of like following strategy's footsteps. They're going to have one higher risk, higher yield, but it's going to be a fixed dividend perpetual preferred. And that's going to be their senior. And then they're going to be having a perpetual preferred with a convertible. So this one is going to have some capital gain, upside exposure to the MetaPlanet price, and also some income, albeit no lower income. We don't have too much details about these offerings just yet. So I haven't gone into the weeds. And don't tell me in the comment section, this is because this is actually this or that. This is not a meaningful part of the business yet. These have not launched yet. We don't have all of the data yet on these, but we know there's going to be 2. We know there's going to be two preferreds. We know they're going to have different risk profiles, and we also know that the dividend is going to be under 6% for both of them. And of course, that is because the yields are much lower in Japan. And we know that they like the 5-5-5 plan. And so 555 is roughly $3.3 billion, or roughly $3 billion, something like that. So we know they like that plan. So it's the 555 plan. And with that plan, of course, that's a lot of money coming in for preferreds. And so the question is, how big of a demand is going to be for preferred in Japan? How quickly are they going to be able to issue these preferred in Japan? The bond market in Japan is yield starved, and so a lot of people believe they will be gobbled up by the market really quickly. The thing is that we don't know yet about that. We don't know because there is a shareholder approval, which is September 1st. And if you follow the MetaPlanet team, they've been going on a quest to try to show people how to vote on their shares, especially in Japan with Japanese language, graphics and all of that, trying to get people to vote on their shares and approve this. So this is not yet, that's going to be big catalyst number one. Now, catalyst number two, which is happening, this one is happening, is the issuance of new shares by way of international offering. This and the latest two things are a big deal. So what they're doing is they're suspending the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd moving strike warrants. So they're suspending the ATM for 3 cycles. So we're going to be looking at a September without quote-unquote ATM for MetaPlanet, ATM equivalent. And why are they doing that? Well, they are doing that because they are going to issue shares internationally. And by internationally, I mostly understand in the United States, because of course that's the deepest capital market. I'm sure there will be shares bought outside of the US, but to me, the way I understand this is mostly issuing shares in the United States. Let's be clear here. How many shares do they issue? Of course, no surprise to anyone. 555 million shares at $6. That is $3.3 billion. $3.3 billion. And don't quote me on the yen, by the way. I just realized I don't really know how much that is. I think it's a few $1 billion. I think it's like $3 or $4 billion, but it's not my currency. So don't quote me on the yen. It looks good in yen, but it's different. I'm pretty sure it's $3 to $4 billion. So anyways, that's the income of live videos. So anyways, 555 million at $6. That's going to be $3.3 billion going into the company, right? So we're issuing new shares. So we're going to dilute and we're going to collect that MNAV. The current market cap is a 4.4, right? And we're going to issue $3.3 billion. And this is where it gets very exciting for me, because they're doing this at an MNAV of 2.2, right? This is and I know people are upset that the MNAV is down, but this is an MNAV that Strategy dreams of, right? Strategy's MNAV is under 1.5 right now. So, and Strategy does not hesitate doing billion-dollar buys at MNAV under 1.5. So, of course, I'm going to be very excited when I see this company doing a $3.3 billion raise at a MNAV above 2, right? Because if you do 3.3 billion offering at a MNAV above 2, that means your BTC gain is probably going to be 1.5, 1.6, maybe 1.7 billion is going to be your BTC gain, and so half of the doubling could already be coming from that issuance of new shares. And if you add the preferreds to that, which may come also in the fall, so in the fall, you're going to have the preferred. In the fall, you're going to have the international shares, 3 billion worth. You may be looking at yet another doubling in the number of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And the last wild card here is, of course, because why did they stop issuing the moving strike warrants here? Because they're hoping for a squeeze. They're hoping for a rebound in MNAV in September. Now, that didn't work for MSTR. I don't know if it will work for MetaPlanet. I don't know how many short attacks are going on with MetaPlanet. I know MetaPlanet is a much harder stock to short, as the Jim Chanos exchange with Gerovich showed on X. I know it's tougher to short MetaPlanet, so I don't know if that's gonna work out. I know stopping the ATM didn't work for Strategy. Maybe it's gonna work for MetaPlanet. I know that they stopped the moving strike warrant because they're hoping for a rebound in MNAV, and If the rebound in MNAV, say, takes 2 to 3 weeks, 3 weeks, then in 3 weeks, that's the timing of when they will be issuing 555 million new shares in the United States and rest of the world, but not in Japan. And so I mean, what if they get the MNAV back to 3? And then they issue and dump so many shares on the market? That would be an amazing harvest of that MNAV. And I look at that as a very positive news. It could be extremely attractive, extremely accretive. And in the worst case scenario, kind of my worst case scenario, let's assume they do this and MNAV keeps dropping over the next few weeks. Well, it wouldn't move the stock price much. But what it would do is you would still acquire a whole bunch of Bitcoin. You would still generate Bitcoin yield. And then after this operation, in a worst case scenario, you could be in a situation where the MNAV is close to 1 or 1.1 or 1.2. And if that were to happen, I would look at this stock as even less of a downside risk. I would look at this stock as even more of a hold in the long run. The closer these companies get to an MNAV of 1, to me, the less the risk of them going down, because I just don't think they're going to go below 1, especially when you're a company that issues preferred. MetaPlanet issues preferred. If they issue preferred, they can take the proceeds from the preferred and they can buy back their stock when they issue preferred and when that gets approved. So I'm looking at MetaPlanet and I tell to myself, this is a win-win scenario. If we get a small squeeze, the MNAV is going to increase back to a 3, and then we're going to dump a bunch of shares at a 3, and we're going to collect that MNAV. And who cares if the MNAV even falls to 1.5 at that point, because they will have harvested so much BTC gain and grown so much of a BTC bag. And that's kind of my working hypothesis. And even worst case hypothesis where the MNAV stays at a 2, well, it's still accretive, and it still gets them close to achieving their BTC target for 2025. And so in my view, Bitcoin is going to be $1 million someday. And when Bitcoin is $1 million, this company should be trading near 1x MNAV, and thus, it should be an outstanding return. At least in theory, that's my hope. That's this is going to be a very good one to hold. Of course, my heart still belongs with strategy, but I diversify a little bit. So anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice, only entertainment on this channel. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.